Welcome to the Sex, God, and Chaos podcast, a conversation built to help you address the mess, connect the dots, and defeat addiction. Doing your work matters because if nothing changes, then nothing changes. Life is tough and we're here to help. I'm your host, Derrick, and as always, I'll be joined by Roane. Let's jump right in.
We touch on this often, but man, this topic today, as far as recovering the life God intended as we define it, not just the kind of treatment and clinical stuff, but like real recovery. And real recovery is that, because that's what we're after, and that's what God's after for us. And so today we're going to just dive into this idea of shame, and it's it's tying it in shame and aggression. And I wish I could say that I certainly came up with that. I probably will say that at some point, but to give credit where credit is due, it's one of these books that I had not come across on masculinity. And I'd like to say I've read all the books on masculinity. I certainly haven't, but I've read a lot. But for some reason, this one kind of like slipped by me, and I had a guy recommend it to me. And man, I started reading this book, and there may be some other ones out there, but I have not read anything better on true masculinity. And the book I'm referring to is To Be a Man by Robert Augustus Masters, and he's a clinical psychologist. And the thing that I love about this book, because I've read all the kind of Christian authors around masculinity and others, but the how he's approaching this just from a kind of more of a psychology viewpoint, rather than a kind of Christian viewpoint. And as I always say, I don't really know what that word Christian means, especially today, because man, there is no true definition of that, and the way that it's practiced and lived out, I just don't know what it is. But one thing I do know is the real Jesus. And the real Jesus, we sang hymns about this, wonderful counselor, right? Jesus was the most brilliant psychologist that ever walked the planet. And when you know that the word psyche is the Greek word for soul, maybe we should listen to Jesus around psychology, because all these things are like, it's there when you begin to read it in that light. And so, boy, I hit this page 16 in this book, and it was one of the best things that I've come across. And this is out of chapter 2. And I'm just going to kind of read the quote, and then we're going to unpack it and go deeper. But here's what he's writing about. He gives a real life scenario. The wife has said something. The husband has interpreted it through his filter, through his grid, in a shame message. And I'll just start kind of in the middle of that. What he doesn't recognize is that in this situation, his anger is secondary, with his primary emotion being shame. He was put down a lot as a boy for not being more competent, and so his wife's questioning of his competence has triggered his old wounding over being shamed for not doing things better. And this shame has very quickly mutated into anger and then into aggression, without him being aware of such an emotional shift. He's not yet recognized that his aggressiveness is an all but automatic strategy to avoid or bypass his shame. Shame is probably our most hidden and misunderstood emotion. It's also the one most likely to motivate men to stay away from the very help that they need, and even to admit that they need. And that can range from counseling to treatment, addiction programs, whatever. Performance anxiety is driven by shame. So is the drive to overachieve. So is this pressure to man up. Shame is behind the scenes much more often than we might think. Um, and so there's more, but that's a good place to kind of stop and just to really begin to dive in, because we touched on it. We probably in several episodes, but even the last episode, this kind of the shame-based religiosity, this performance-based churchianity. I want to use that word instead of Christianity, because ain't nothing Christian about it. But it's like perform, do the right things, act right, do right, be right, and you're good. Well, the problem is none of us can do that, right? The only way that happens is when we're empowered by the Holy Spirit, and our will is aligned and in submission to the will of God. And so it's a futile approach to trying to become better, right? Showing up, serving, and again, it's easy to pick on churchianity, but you see this in secular world too. Go volunteer, Habitat for Humanity, all of these things. In some ways, not always, but certainly there's a part of it is like, okay, I'm really a good person. I'm really a good person, and by doing these things, by performing, okay, I now know I'm good because I did this really good thing. And you see that even in the woke culture, the virtue signaling, as we call it, and it's just a tragic kind of look at our culture when you step back and look at it from what God really intended, how life is to be lived, because we're really missing the mark.
So the connection with anger, that's what's so intriguing for me, because he starts off to, that is a very packed quote. There's no doubt about it. And to be frank, the whole book is that way, really.
Yes.
I can't suggest it enough for male and female alike to read this book. I don't know the man. I'm not backing him as like an individual or anything like that.
Right.
But he says some very smart things in this book. But I want to just tease out, if we can, for a second, because engaging with someone's anger can be a very dangerous enterprise. And for those that are listening, for our listeners who are like, oh my gosh, another episode on shame, I would say, yes, and there will be more. There will be more. Because it is the most ignored driver in all addiction circles. We've got the addiction cycle. We talk about shame being triggered. We talk about reasons for shame. Why do we do that? Because unlocking that lock is the door out. So we're going to talk about this from as many different angles as we possibly can, largely because culture and religion are ignoring both. So somebody's got to take that spot and say what we're saying. But initially, for him to talk about this, what I'm viewing is aggression, what's underneath that is shame. And look, I'll just show my cards here. You and I have done this work on an individual basis. So I know that you have a lot of prowess here. I would like to hear you, as Roane, in your 60s, going through everything that you've been through. How do you work with people on that? How did you work with you on that?
Well, the even our last episode, this idea of resilience, and moving out of victimhood. Growing up in a dysfunctional home, I always say my family put the fun in dysfunction, but it was highly dysfunctional. And, what happens, and this is true for all of us, children are great observers, right? But terrible interpreters. And so what happens in these environments is we're going to come up with a message in trying to interpret what's going on in this crazy chaos because we're trying to make sense of it in our little child brain. And the only way that we're going to make sense of it is somehow it's got to be my fault, right? Because, I mean, a baby, when it's born, is a full-blown narcissist. It has no concept of other. When it's hungry, it's going to scream. It's got a dirty diaper. Change me. And it's not going to wait on you because it doesn't care what you're doing. But hopefully, as we grow, we begin to differentiate. We begin to realize that there are other people in the world. But as a child, developmentally, you cannot take these in your mind. Parents are God's proxy on this earth. They are his representatives. In the ideal world we don't live in, they are perfect, godlike creatures. And so they cannot be the problem. Somehow I'm the problem. And so we begin to interpret, and it is shame. Because even, it's kind of the God stamp on every human soul. We're looking at it and we're going, something's off here. Something's not right. And we're going to begin to interpret that in some way that somehow it's my fault. If I had done better, or if I'd not made Dad mad, or if I'd hit 2 home runs instead of just one, whatever, so it's moving us into some type of performance-based acceptance, right? I've got to be gooder. I've got to. If I was more, somehow Dad would not always be mad at me, but I don't know what's going on at the time. He's really mad at Mom, but somehow I get that directed at me. I don't know what's going on. So it's going to become about me, and I'm going to come up with what we call a toxic shame message or messages. And typically we've got more than just one. But my core shame wound is I am on my own, right? And there are others. I'm insignificant. I don't matter. That's how I frame it. Because I was just on my own. There was nobody waiting at the door when I came home at 16 at 3 a.m, drunk. What the hell? But even then, there were times where it's like, this isn't right. I knew it, but I didn't know it. And so because we're feeling this stuff and we're trying to make some kind of sense out of it. And so those toxic shame messages really becomes our belief system. And I can have it in my head and sing the song, Jesus loves me, this I know, because the Bible tells me so. I can just sing that all day long, but down in my gut, in my heart of hearts, what I believe about myself is I'm just not enough, right? I'm inadequate. I'm insecure. I'm alone. I'm insignificant. Now, that's my belief system. And what all of us are going to do is we are going to live out what we believe. Now, I've got some superficial head knowledge about Jesus, but I don't have any heart knowledge. And I'm living out in this false belief system. And so the way that started to manifest for me was okay, there's a lot of shame here. So I know, because I learned this early on, I know what fixes that, right? What medicates that, what numbs that. Oh, porn, right? Sex. Oh, that's going to make it all better. Well, of course it doesn't. It just makes it 10 times worse. Because even as a man, one of the things that I don't think is talked about enough, it's a very emasculating behavior for a grown man to be masturbating at midnight in his kitchen while his wife's asleep. And that's a very adolescent, little teenage boy, prepubescent, 12-year-old boy behavior. Yeah. And so what I'm doing is I'm reinforcing this shame that is at work in me. And so now I'm probably going to be pissed off about that because I can't stop doing it. I want to, kind of, but I don't. But I'm trying, as Paul says, the things I do, I don't want to do. Things I want to do, I don't do. So now I'm at war in my soul. In here, there's this battle going on. And so that internal conflict is going to come out, because that's what we talk about. What are you acting out? I'm acting out my emotions, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm going to be pissed off, angry, agitated, anxious, whatever. And then the slightest nothing is going to provoke me. And that's where this idea of shame and aggression are so intertwined. And, we could call it defensiveness. But what are you defending? Well, I'm defending that hurting little boy that's never healed, was never acknowledged, and all he's done is medicate. And so now the big grown me is going to rise up, right? I'm going to get aggressive, passive aggressive. It's going to start coming out. And so aggression is now in play. Driven by the shame, secondary emotion is anger and aggression. Well, aggression's more the act. Anger's the secondary emotion. But it's so connected.
Man, I've been around this community a long, long time, and the way that you just walked through that explains so much in my own story. I have my own interpretations, but I don't know that I've slowed down long enough to really investigate that link, and that the anger in a lot of ways is defense. And boy, does it come across that way. And we've been in these situations where we're with other grown men and something happens, and I'm like, whoa, man, that was kind of an exaggerated reaction to that little situation. I mean, I'm sorry I took your little Debbie or whatever,
Right.
But that anger and that aggression.
You mean the little Debbie snack, not the little Debbie like girlfriend or something.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Just to clarify.
The little Debbie snack was my girlfriend through puberty. So
it still is mine. Well, I'd like for it to be, but I'm married to Eva, and so I don't have a choice but to eat healthy. Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. In between episodes, I had a powdered donut. That's the way I roll these days.
Okay, so I'm drinking a Coke. We'll have to get our producer to edit that out. I'm really just trying to stay on sugar and caffeine today because I did a real Mississippi thing last night. I went crappie fishing, and it was I could still be out there now catching one every cast, but I had to come home at midnight. I had to come home at midnight.
Yeah, adventure.
Yes.
That's part of your sobriety is pursuing adventure, which that's a different episode.
100%. Yeah.
It's interesting if you talk to men especially and say, hey, you want to turn on the anger in your life. The fastest way is not to get your wife to act how you say she should. The fastest way is to pursue some adventure, right? Because a lot of that is just pent up stuff that's spilling out, and the way you're explaining that and the way that the book explains it, that so much of our rage or anger or aggression that is misplaced. I mean, I think we should stop and say there are times in society that men should get very angry. There are things that we should get very angry about. Yes, exactly. But when you're watching it, not when you're experiencing it, but when you're watching it, you can definitely tell the difference between the two. Like this isn't righteous anger. This is just a petulant little child that grew up chronologically, but not in maturity. One thing I do think I want to talk about, as risky as it may be, even for my codependent loyalist self, I do say this in sessions that I have with men very, very often, when we're looking at that feelings wheel and trying to figure out what's going on internally. In my home growing up, I wasn't taught how to be sad. I wasn't taught how to be ashamed. I wasn't taught necessarily how to be proud. But I was very much educated in how to be angry. So if I've got something going on inside of me that I'm feeling it's amazing. And I'm 46 years old, and I've been to hell and back a few times, but I
Yep.
still find myself fighting that quick exchange. Boom. I'm feeling embarrassed, but what I'm going to present to you is anger, because I know how to work with that, right? It's like that's a tool that someone taught me how to use, that I observed it
Mm-hmm.
being used a lot. I'm very comfortable with it. But if somebody asked me how to be sad, even today, I would say, I,
Yeah.
that's a hard question. All right. So this aggression is something that we go to essentially as a default, because many of us were trained in this. We've been through those validation exercises about how to be angry, but how to be full of shame and how to weather that correctly. Man, that is not
Mm.
something we're very comfortable with.
Well, it's like most, and again, I'm just speaking to men because that's really kind of all I work with. Um, Even when we're seeing a couple, I'm working with the husband. Eva's working with the wife, so I do get to see on that other side of the fence, which most men don't get to. And in that, anger is like it's the only tool in our tool belt, because it as a man, as a boy, it's acceptable. I always use the example with wives to help them understand, because they think that we should relate to them like their girlfriends relate to them. And I'm always like, hang on, he's not, that's never going to happen. Now, as men, certainly, becoming aware of even what's going on inside of me, aware of my emotions, figuring that out is a huge step, because most of us, we didn't see it modeled. Um, and I'll use this when working with a couple. I'll say to the husband, you remember when you were like 16, playing sports, high school, whatever, and man, you walked into the locker room and you just walked in and you said, man, today, guys, I'm really sad today. And remember how everybody just came around you, and man, it was like group hugs and like, tell me more. Oh my goodness. And probably didn't even go to practice, right? I mean, that's the way that worked. No, hell no. You got your butt beat is what happened. And then somebody told the coach and he made fun of you. That's how it goes on our side of the fence. And then, I'll say to the wife, like, well, remember when you were growing up and you walked into that situation and you said, oh gosh, girls, today I'm just really sad. And guess what? There were group hugs, and it was tell me more. And you did skip practice or the game even, because nobody cares. But it's like, man, again, it's just to illustrate, man, we come from two very, very different paradigms when it comes to emotions, because women are just wired. They're certainly wired for emotion.
Mm,
That's in the
thank God.
creation story. Yes,
Yeah.
and we always say, us men, Eve was the first fully human being because she was born out of the flesh of Adam, fully human, right? And us men, we are mostly just fancy dirt.
Mhm.
That's I tell wives, you got to remember that's what you got, right? And so it's a growth area, becoming aware of what's going on inside of me, and then these things like just being able to slow down instead of going to the reactive defensiveness, because what I'm defending is that little boy that lives inside of me, and he had no defense. He just survived emotionally, right? For some of us, it was like just physical survival too. But uh, we didn't get a lot of training, and we didn't get a lot of modeling, any hardly, and and so it is a skill set, uh, and it is an ability that you can learn, but it takes very intentional effort.
Mm.
And that quick reaction is, if I could say, if you want to change your marriage, the best thing you could do is just like before you respond to whatever it is that has been said, just count to 10. I mean, it's like the simplest, dumbest
Isn't
thing,
it?
but
But it
it's
works.
like, but if I can slow it down, I've got a whole lot better shot at responding than reacting, because what I'm reacting to is so automatic because of the old messages, the old wounds that are unhealed. And the healing of those wounds is beginning to talk about this stuff, go vulnerable, and you got to do that with safe, trustworthy people, not necessarily churchianity, because that's different than the real Jesus, but where people are actually going to begin to love and accept you and begin to speak into these wounded parts that have got to be healed in an experiential way. All of this that happened to us was happened in a relational and emotional experience. And the only way that it is healed is in a corrective relational and emotional experience. And I don't need to be doing that in a women's group with other women, because that would be a complete boundary failure. I need to be doing that with safe, trustworthy men that get this stuff, that understand it, that are further down the road and can walk with me through it and model it in the process of growth and change. It's the only way that it'll ever work.
This episode of Sex, God, and Chaos is brought to you by the Samson Society, a community of men who are tired of pretending and ready to start living in the light. For a lot of us, the hardest part of change isn't admitting we have a problem, it's believing we don't have to face it alone. That's what Samson Society is all about: brotherhood, honesty, and grace for men walking through struggles. There's no judgment, no posturing, and no perfect people allowed. Just men showing up, telling the truth, and finding freedom together. Whether you're a pastor, a husband, a businessman, or a guy who's just tired of being stuck, you'll find people who get it and who won't let you stay where you are. It's a place where every man has a place at the table. If you're ready to stop hiding and start healing, visit SamsonSociety.com. That's SamsonSociety.com, because isolation destroys men, but brotherhood brings them back to life.
Man, every time we do one of these episodes, I find myself feeling it at a deeper level. Again, just vulnerably today to say, I would present at a meal like, yeah, I've got shame licked. I mean, I get it, right? Why are we talking about this still?
Oh, yeah.
But in my living room or my kitchen or in the car with my kids that are 18 and 15, it shows up in a very, very different way. And I think this digging into the idea of shame being triggering, which I know the word triggering is triggering for the both of us. But the fact
I'm activating.
Yeah. The fact that it is activating an old wound or an old message. And I just want to take the opportunity to say to the people that are listening, you cannot be angry enough at your wife to heal your heart. It's never going to work.
Boy.
Additionally, you cannot be angry enough at yourself to heal your heart. Anger is never, ever going to provide the solution. Even righteous anger is only a fuel to get to a solution. It does its job as a booster to activate us, to get us keyed in on something and focused, dilate the pupils and all of those things. It has a purpose, but its purpose is not to be the solution. So if you're angry at him or angry at her, and you think if I could just get angry enough for long enough, this will solve this.
Because it always works.
That's not how it's going to work. The trick about it, though, and I think we should be honest about this, is it feels so good. Man, does it feel good. Because we're defending that part of our story that was not defended, that was not protected. So we have this kind of, to use a word, we have this righteous feeling about being angry, right? We feel like we're doing the right thing, so it feels very good. But when it comes out as aggression, and I think we should mention this as well, pornography is littered littered with aggression in the sexual experience.
Totally.
There's a reason for
Yes.
that. Don't fall prey to that.
It's there. Yep.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
Yeah. And that sense of novelty will take you as far down that road as you want to go, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And I sit with men, they're like, man, you would just not believe the stuff that I've exposed myself to. And I look back at them and I say, I bet I would. I bet I would believe it.
Yep.
Because the more that you feed that aggression, the more that you feed that anger and that resentment, the more attracted you're going to be to it in pornography, because it feels like it matches you where you are emotionally. It feels like it's what you need. And then it takes you deeper and deeper into the cycle. So I don't want to hang too much on this part of this definition that talks about aggression, but man, did that catch my attention.
I know. And you know, we see it manifested in you know, again, it's not just marriage relationship. As you said earlier, some of the things, even in our men's community, where, you know, a guy will, whatever, get sideways over, like, are you kidding me? You're getting butt hurt over that. And you know, the great thing about our community, I don't think it's unique. At least it shouldn't be. Is when that happens, you know, what we encourage. I don't want to say demand, because that sounds like some kind of cult. But what we encourage is like, dude, you need to own that, and then you need to go talk that through with your brother. Right? Because, I mean, that's the reality. And, you know, those are the ways, again, corrective, relational, and emotional experience. That is growth, because, you know, this is, I always say, I tell guys all the time, what we're doing here, it's not church, right? We don't get mad over the color of the carpet in the vestibule and go start our own other church, right? No.
Did you just say vestibule?
Dude,
you just said vestibule.
I did. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes. The sad thing is, you knew what that meant.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah. Oh gosh. But it's like, again, the modeling and the corrective experience and the practice, because so much of this is practice, is like Jesus told us, when you go to pray, he said, don't pray. That's I think it probably originally said, that's stupid. I think that's what he actually said. Because he says, get up and go to your brother. When you realize you have something against him or something that's sideways, well, that is how it's supposed to be done. And so now I'm beginning to practice healthy relational dynamics, and I'm doing it in a much more safe environment with men that I do life with in community, because I'm not going home with them and they're not going home with me, but I'm actually on the field, in the game, practicing in real time, doing the things that reconcile relationship. And if there's one thing that I cannot tolerate in a men's group, men's community, is like this idea that somehow I'm going to get butthurt and I'm just going to, you know, take my ball and go home, and I'm going to invoke my man superpower. The S on our chest does not stand for Superman. It stands for sulk. And I'm just going to go sulk in the corner, suck my thumb, and be a victim, rather than doing what's required in order to become the man that God is calling me to be, created me to be from the beginning. But these relational dynamics are not just in the marriage. And the best place to practice is in a safe community with others that get this stuff. And if you're in some men's group and that kind of behavior is, I don't know, is going on, and it's allowed and not spoken into, because we've had situations, I mean, being in real community is messy. And there have been situations, certainly, I've been in the middle of a lot, because I can offend people. I don't know, it's just a gift. But I think every guy that's happened to, if I'm aware of it, sometimes I'm not even aware because he's taken his ball, he's gone in the corner sulking. And then if I find out that something I said was hurtful or offensive or whatever, which there's a high probability, man, I am going to make a beeline to that guy as soon as I can to try to reconcile that relationship. In the specific ministry that we are all called to biblically is the ministry of reconciliation. That all of us are in that ministry, right? And so I'm going to do everything I can, as much as it is up to me, to mend that, repair that, and like go and like try to make it right, right? And then, if he wants to stay butthurt in the corner, well, you know what? I can also do what Jesus said. I can shake the dust off my sandals and I can move on, because I'm only going to move with the movers. I'm not going to somehow go try to rescue that guy. I'm going to do what's right, what's required, what I know I need to do. And then, I can't do anything about what's on the other side of that fence. That's up to him. But that's the same thing in our relationship with our spouse. I've got no control over that. After being married for almost, 45 years, holy cow. I finally, somewhere along the way, I figured out that I have absolutely zero control over my beautiful bride.
Congratulations.
I'm not sure she's figured that out yet, but she's working on it.
Yeah.
But it's like I all I can do is what I know is necessary, what I need to do in order to live out, and be a true follower of Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's now I'm practicing, right? And it's taken a lot of practice to just be able to do those things. It doesn't just, fall out of the sky and hit you in the head. I've been putting myself in position to practice in a men's group. I don't know, since the day I was ambushed by Jesus, and even before recovery, I was always a part of some men's something, Bible study, or, I don't know, wild game supper, whatever. But I was in it, right? And then certainly, recovering the life God intended, man, that was a big shift from what real community is all about. And so I've got to begin to practice. But I've got to also, this idea of awareness, I've got to be aware of those messages, the things that are fueling the anger, the aggression, driven by shame. Because it's, dude, you may have done a deep dive. I want to do a deeper dive into the Hebrew, into the what the actual meaning around this was. But I believe that when the Bible, you can put the word shame when it says sin, when it says devil, Beelzebub, Satan, whatever. I think you put the word shame in those verses, dude. It may not be sin that is at work in me. It may be shame that is at work in me, because sin always produces shame. And so now shame is at work in me. And bondage, even when you see bondage, slavery, put the word shame in there. I believe that we are not able to walk in freedom. We are bound up living out of this performance-based Churchianity, performance-based acceptance, whatever you want to call it. And we have forfeited our true freedom in Christ that he offers, because he's very clear. He came for our freedom, and there is therefore now no condemnation, no shame for those who are in Christ Jesus. And getting to that place of acceptance that, man, I am a beloved son of the one true King, right? I like, holy cow. And beginning to get that down into your gut as we root out these shame messages and the behaviors that go along with it, man, that's salvation.
Well, that's beautifully spoken, Roane.
Ah, dude, I wish I didn't know anything about it. I wish I was just somehow those people that like just live oblivious, unaware, and just kind of coast along, and everything's just hunky dory.
Yeah, I'm not one of
I'm
those
very
guys.
jealous.
My wife and I get in arguments about this because she'll say, "Man, it's just a beautiful day today," and I'm like, "I would have never noticed that. what the weather's like today? I would have never noticed."
Yeah,
I'm so up in my own mind. But I think the replacement of these words that are clearly negative and is just a beautiful way to approach this. And what we are not saying that sin isn't real. we definitely believe in the concept of sin, of missing the mark, of refusing grace, of refusing the plan of God. We get those things. What we're hitting on today, thanks to Masters, is what perpetuates this problem. It is certainly shame. It's a critical part of the addiction cycle for a reason. If you take it out of there, then the power of that cycle breaks down. And I think in my theology, if we're talking about that, which is dangerous, but in my theology, one of the most important things that we can pass one believer to another person, whether they're a follower of Jesus or not, is acceptance. It's one of the most powerful agents in the human relational paradigm. I am offering you acceptance. Now, does that mean that I condone or accept all of your behaviors? No, that's BS acceptance. Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you authentic acceptance, which means I can allow you into my space without forcing you to change. Jesus did that all the time. I'm going to be honest about my assessment of where you are, who we are together. We're going to do all those things, but I'm going to accept you. I'm not going to, and this is the nuance here, I'm not going to accept your definition of yourself as a pervert. I'm not going to accept that. I'm going to accept you. And how do we neutralize that situation? Well, I've got to share with you the things in my life that have caused me shame. And the beautiful part about this is that when we start opening up about our own shame, it heals both people at the same time. It's 100%. So powerful to be able to say, man, I was so ashamed about this for so long. And now I'm talking to you about it as a practice of my sobriety and healing. And the person across from us is like, damn, I can't believe you just said that. Maybe I don't have to carry shame about that thing.
Amen. And, it's interesting, shame shows up early on, right? After the fall, Adam and Eve are hiding in the bushes in their shame. But I think shame may have shown up even a bit before that, because when Eve is having the conversation with the talking snake, always when I say that, it's like, dude, we just gloss over this stuff like, is this Lord of the Rings? What? It's a talking snake. What? I mean, it's just we're so like, I don't know, numb to the story. But okay, so she's just having a conversation with the snake, and they're talking about the tree, and she tells him that we're not to eat of that tree. Da 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 da. And then it's so interesting because the father of lies, the evil one, the crafty one, what he says, the question, right? Who told you that? Boy. Now, if I'm in Eve's shoes or in her, I don't know, bare feet, grass slippers, when you get a question like that, like, man, who told you that? Something is like wrong with me? Maybe I'm stupid. There's an element that would elicit shame even in that question, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then, okay, and I think even the implication there is that somehow that God told Adam the deal, right? And then Adam, being as the way it was set up, the spiritual leader, all those things, Adam conveys to his wife, here's the deal about the tree. And so evidently the talking snake knew this, right? And so Eve questions Adam, right? So doubt is now in play. And so you see this just in the human condition. And so this shame thing is pretty old. It's pretty ancient, and it's part of our humanity. And I think so much of certainly what Jesus offers us, this way of freedom, this different way of living, is freedom from the bondage of living somehow less than as a child of God. And that's the tragedy.
But we see it so much. I mean, there's so much to talk about in this quote, but one thing I want to make sure we hit before this episode wraps is that performance-based acceptance piece. I used to think this was just a male issue, but it's a all of us issue. And I think, an honest question that I've had to ask in my life that I would love to pass on to other people is, do you feel accepted when you're not performing? Do you have to perform to be accepted? Because people are getting hip to the idea of shame, especially in therapy circles these days. So like, I don't want to talk about shame, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But if you're talking about performance-based acceptance and you're wanting to look at something that will be septic in your human relationships and your relationship with God, it will be that. First of all, because God is not entertained by our performance. It's
pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, you know what?
Yeah.
That's not what I'm here for, right?
Yeah.
The danger, though, is that our human relationships, our horizontal relationships, are very entertained by our performance, and staying with sick, that's usually part of the sauce there. We are performing for acceptance from each other or people outside of this relationship even. But performance-based acceptance, I think, is something that we should be attacking with rigor. We're not doing that because so many of our institutions and systems depend upon it. Our current version of marriage that we have, which is absolute hogwash for most of us, and then our current version of religion that most of us have, which is absolute hogwash. And I do want to say there are a couple pastors out there that are fighting this very heavily. I know a few, and I'm very proud of them. But it's not going to stop me from sounding the alarms that most are caught in the very same system that raised us, that our seminaries are producing, which is just outrageous to me. And I went and I loved it, but where we go to learn how to be a minister is in the academia. Like, holy moly. Yeah. This is just crazy. This is crazy to me.
But the way Jesus modeled it, right?
Exactly.
That's what he showed us.
That's what he showed us. Go get a degree, and that's how you'll learn. But I think to just come around here for a second to say the performance-based acceptance is a huge litmus test on whether you have shame driving you in your life. Because a lot of people will say, no, man, I actually have no shame. I don't care. I don't care that she knows. I don't care that he knows. I don't care that they know. I was stumbling down drunk at wherever restaurant 3 nights ago. It was a funny story.
Oh, yeah. No.
Yeah, exactly.
That's called stupid. Yeah.
That's right. But if you start talking about performance-based acceptance, that connects to a lot of people. And I think it's a way to expose, if you are addicted to performance-based acceptance, then you've got a lot of shame driving most of your behavior. And I don't know what it's about, but it's in there, and we're going to have to talk for a very long time to figure out what those things are that are causing you shame, probably, because what you'll present to me at the beginning is not the actual thing. This is why it's so difficult for the professional paid for pastor Christian to spew out all the Bible stuff and not engage with the people. Like, let's think about this for a second. There are guys that are in ministry that are so gosh dang famous that you have to set an appointment with them 3 months in advance to get 30 minutes with them. What the hell is that man going to know about your spiritual development? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You know, and it's kind of not his fault. It's just the job that he's doing.
It's the system.
It's the system, right? And if you're in that system and you're listening and you're mad at me, first of all, I'm sorry that you're in that system. Second of all, I hope you get mad enough to quit. That's what I'm going to say to you directly behind this microphone.
Amen.
Yes. But to allow what I'm trying to get to without ranting about the church anymore is it takes time for shame to surface. And as you so eloquently pointed out, it's got to surface in relationship over time. We get back to how true change occurs, right? It's grace and truth over time. We love that guy.
Oh, yeah.
For good reason.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for good reason. Thank you, Cloud. Or was that you? Did you come up with that?
No, that was me. Actually, I am Henry Cloud's Mississippi cousin, because a lot of people don't know, but he's actually from Vicksburg, Mississippi. So, kind of my pseudonym is Bubba Cloud.
Bubba Cloud, yeah.
Henry's dumb Mississippi cousin.
You're spreading his message. So, I guess just kind of put a pin in it for this episode if we can. How do I know if I'm in this problem? How do I know if I have this disease, as it were? Well, first of all, everybody does, but how much do you have it? Well, let's dig into some other questions. How angry are you on a semi-regular basis? And how much of your life, if I were to look at your calendar or your checkbook, would indicate to me that you are performing to be accepted by the people around you? Those are just two good questions to start with. And I hope they make you very uncomfortable because that's where growth occurs.
Absolutely.
But I ask those in my life, and most healthy men that I know ask them as well.
You have to. And even as you were talking about this performance-based acceptance, when we get into betrayal, infidelity, betrayal trauma, one of the things that I see so often is like, and it's shame, because now everything has come out, everything's out on the table. And so now I'm like, man, the things that I did not ever want, I was going to take to my grave, are now out there. And boy, that's a shame. I mean, there's the highest form level of shame, I think. And so now, what happens dynamically in the relationship so often is that the partner is going to naturally, just by default, she's going to be in the one-up position. And if I'm in this one-down position of just wallowing in my shame, and really, I mean, there's kind of a healthy shame aspect. I would say probably guilt would be the more healthy part. It's like I did bad. It's not that I am bad. But now what's happening in this, if I'm coming out of this performance-based acceptance, I am going to do everything in my power to please and appease my betrayed wife. Now, I certainly need to go above and beyond. I mean, I gotta take some arrows. I've got to comfort that hurt. There's a lot that I do need to do, but dynamically, what's going to happen is the power struggle that is present in every marriage. God set that in place when he kicked him out of the garden, right? Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Well, that is the power struggle that I believe God put in motion for us to figure it out. But if I'm in this one up, one down, performance-based acceptance while living in my shame, now the power struggle is it's on steroids. It's multiplied and amplified times 100, because I mean she's hurt, and certainly as we say, that's got to be comforted. There's a lot to that, but just dynamically in the relationship, he's going to be just, man, trying to perform. And because of her hurt and her pain of the betrayal, she is not going to even be able to respond. It's going to take some time. And so now, if he's not in working with a good counselor, in a good, healthy group, doing his work, he's going to wind up becoming very resentful. And that is going to fuel going back to acting out, because resentment is going to, like, because if I'm doing something expecting, some kind of return, and then I don't get it, and then it's like, well, why in the hell am I doing this? And like, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to go back and do what I did. So, boy, there's so much to this, and partners are dealing with their own shame. Like, how did I not know? How could I have been so stupid? Like, if I stay, all my friends and family are just, they're going to think I'm stupid. I mean, now shame is at work on that side of the fence as well. And so we've got to really begin to understand and see this shame, because it's in play, and it's just part of the human condition.
To learn more about what you've heard today and to engage with the Sex, God, and Chaos team, visit sexgodchaos.com.